all you freedom-loving people. Senator Fetterman was the latest to call for a Trump pardon, while Trump representatives met with Ukrainian officials and Tucker Carlson talked to the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Okay, let's get into it. Law enforcement has found more clues about the UnitedHealth CEO murder. NYPD Detective Chief Joseph Kenney said that investigators recovered several 9mm shell casings, 3 live 9mm bullets, and 3 fired 9mm casings from outside the hotel. A cell phone was also recovered from the alley where the shooter fled. The bullets used by the masked gunman had the words deny, depose, and defend stamped on them. This is a popular phrase in the insurance industry for how insurance claims are processed. Police are investigating whether the words on the shells indicate motive. Authorities are conducting DNA and fingerprint analysis on items found near the crime, including a water bottle that they believe the shooter purchased at Starbucks shortly before the murder. The NYPD also released 2 unmasked photos of the shooter. Police also searched a hotel on Manhattan's Upper West Side where they believe the shooter may have been staying. A law enforcement source said that the shooter was staying in a multi-occupancy room with 2 other males. Sources say that the killer used a fake ID and paid for the room in cash the night before the shooting. Retired FBI agent Scott Duffy said that it should be easy to piece together a frontal view of the killer using current technology. Duffy said they'll have video of this guy unmasked, and then with their powers, their surveillance teams, and their video experts, they'll be able to have this guy through a couple of possible hits with facial recognition software. They'll be able to put some sort of passport or driver's license photo. Another facet of the investigation, Duffy said, will take place in Thompson's home in Minnesota. He also said that what they will do is make a small circle and quickly exclude them as suspects, then start to broaden the circle. This week, several Republican senators indicated that Pete Hegseth's nomination to lead the Pentagon could be in trouble, but President Trump on Friday reiterated his support for Pete Hegseth. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "Pete Hegseth is doing very well. His support is strong and deep, much more so than the fake news would have you believe." Also, the House of Representatives voted on Thursday to block the House Ethics Committee from releasing a lawfare report on former Representative Matt Gaetz. The House Ethics Committee's year-long investigation into Matt Gaetz over allegations of sexual misconduct ended after Gaetz resigned from Congress. However, Representative Sean Casten, an Illinois Democrat, had introduced a measure that would require a full House vote on whether to release the findings of the Ethics Commission regarding the investigation of Matt Gaetz. He cited 4 precedents since 1987 in which the Ethics Committee continued its work and released its findings after a member resigned from Congress. But the House voted 206 to 198 to reject the measure. You'd think we'd be talking about the election, but lost in the noise is the greatest threat facing America's sovereignty. The fiat dollar is being eviscerated as the U.S. is creating $100,000 of debt per second. The global de-dollarization trend is accelerating as BRICS nations introduce a new global currency called the unit. Is a global monetary reset coming? Was the October BRICS summit the trigger? The unit would be pegged 40% to gold and 60% to a basket of BRICS currencies. BRICS countries commit the unit a new settlement token using the gold held within their borders. Isn't it time to protect your retirement with gold or place a bullish bet on silver? The time is now to call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group. Call them today before it's too late and tell them that Front Page with Scott Goulet sent you, and you'll always get the best-in-class service from Patriots, protecting Patriots. The Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. So call the toll-free number 888-857-0495 and get a free investor guide today, or just click the link in the description below to visit their website, or you can also scan the QR code. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. Again, call 888-857-0495. That's 888-857-0495. Following Senator Joe Manchin's opinion that President Biden should pardon President Trump to keep things balanced, Senator John Fetterman also agrees that President Biden should pardon President Trump. In an interview, Fetterman said that Hunter Biden's indictment was politically motivated, as was the Trump case in New York.
Oh, well, I think it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated, but I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases, and we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. And it's very clear both trials were politically motivated and weaponized that on the other side.
A high-level Ukrainian delegation met with senior representatives of President Trump on Wednesday in an attempt to narrow their wide-ranging differences on resolving the Ukrainian war before President Trump's inauguration. The Ukrainian delegation was led by Andriy Yermak, the head of the Ukrainian president's office. They met President Trump's nominee for White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Special Envoy to Ukraine Keith Kellogg in Washington, D.C. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance also participated in the meeting. The Ukrainian side wants a truce with Russia in exchange for joining NATO. However, President Trump and his team do not support an immediate NATO membership plan for Ukraine. Ukraine envoy Keith Kellogg has signaled that the Trump team may support the Biden administration's efforts to provide more weapons to Ukraine. He said that it would give President Trump leverage in negotiating a settlement with Russia. Lucien Kim, a situation analyst for Ukraine at the International Crisis Group, which specializes in international conflict resolution, said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal that the current regime in Kiev is very frustrated with the outgoing Biden administration and believes that the incoming Trump administration will bring hope for a break from the status quo to the people of Kiev. Kim further summarized that the war is likely to end quickly after President Trump takes office, regardless of future negotiations between the U.S., Ukraine, and Russia. The Ukrainian war has been going on for 3 years, so why will diplomatic negotiations be the only solution to the Ukrainian war? Let's take a look back at the first 3 years of the war. In the first year of the war, both sides wanted to settle the battle quickly. The Russian invasion reached the outskirts of Kiev, but the Ukrainian army successfully retreated. In the fall, the Ukrainian army successfully launched counteroffensives in Kherson and Kharkov, and they recovered a significant portion of the lost territory. By the following year, the two sides were locked in a protracted stalemate. During the past 2 years, the war became more intense, but the battle lines between the two sides changed less and less. In the summer of 2023, Ukraine tried to launch a counteroffensive in the area of Zaporizhia without much success, and in 2024, Russia launched an offensive in the direction of Kharkov, also with little success. Over the past 3 years, after various military adjustments, the reality is that neither Russia nor Ukraine has been able to realize their strategic goals through military means. Russia has not been able to entirely defeat Ukraine, and Ukraine does not have enough military power to recover the territories occupied by Russia. Now, both sides are exhausted, and both Ukraine and Russia are facing enormous problems. Let's look at Russia first. Over the past year, Russia has made some progress on the battlefield in Ukraine, but it has come at the cost of very heavy casualties. The British military intelligence estimates that Russia has suffered more than 700,000 casualties so far, with the loss of 3,500 main battle tanks and 7,500 armored vehicles. This explains why Putin couldn't wait to strike a deal with Kim Jong-un to bring in tens of thousands of North Korean soldiers from North Korea, because Russia is running out of people. The second problem faced by Russia is the supply of arms and ammunition. North Korea supplied Russia with 9 million rounds of ammunition, but these are simple artillery shells. North Korea has no high-tech weapons of its own to help Russia with. The production of Russian fighter jets and advanced tanks depends on a large number of Western electronic components such as chips, sensors, and other key technology components. Because of the Western sanctions, it's very difficult to obtain these technology components. Although Russia can obtain some components through smuggling or third country sources, the prices of these components have risen dramatically, and the scale of supply has been severely limited. This has greatly restricted Russia's ability to produce advanced weapons. The third issue is the Russian economy. Over the past year, inflation in Russia has been above 7% every month. In July and August of this year, the official inflation figures were as high as 9%. In a response to the insane monthly inflation, the Russian central bank has raised its benchmark interest rate to an unthinkable 21% to slow down borrowing and spending. The situation in Ukraine is not much better. The shortage of soldiers is the biggest challenge faced by Ukraine. In the fall of last year, one of the reasons for the huge conflict between Ukraine's then Chief of General Staff, Zaluzhny, and Zelensky was Zaluzhny's insistence that Ukraine would need to mobilize at least 500,000 more soldiers in order to regain its lost territory. Zelensky believed that this figure was simply impossible to achieve, and it would have a huge negative impact on the entire socio-economic situation in Ukraine. In fact, both of them are right. Ukraine does not need more soldiers to accomplish its strategic goals, and the problem is that Ukraine really does not have that many either. Not only that, but Ukraine's weaponry is now extremely dependent on the West, which has its own problems. For example, in the case of the most basic artillery shells, the entire European Union together does not support Ukraine as much as North Korea supports Russia. Although the EU countries have advanced weapons, they do not have a large stockpile of common ammunition. Therefore, in terms of military assistance, Ukraine mainly relies on the United States. However, with the passage of time, especially with the new government in place, the U.S. will not provide unlimited arms assistance. And the people of both countries are tired of war and want peace as soon as possible. According to a Goulet poll, 52% of Ukrainians currently want to end the war as soon as possible through negotiations, while 38% think the fighting should continue until victory is achieved. It's worth noting that in 2022, more than 70% of Ukrainians believe the war should continue, while only 20% supported a peace agreement with Russia. In Russia, support for continuing the war is even lower, with only 36% of Russians believing it should continue, while 53% support negotiating a peace deal. If Vladimir Putin decided to end the war and signed a peace agreement now, 79% of Russians said that they would support him. Therefore, it is very unlikely that this battle will continue for much longer. Tucker Carlson was back in Moscow to interview Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. During the interview, the Russians handed over an olive branch offering to be friendly with the United States.
Minister Lavrov, thank you for doing this. Do you believe the United States and Russia are at war with each other right now?
I wouldn't say so. And in any case, this is not what we want. We would like to have normal relations with all our neighbors, of course, but generally with all countries on earth, especially with the great country like the United States. President Putin repeatedly expressed his respect for the American people, for the American history, for the American achievements in the world. And we don't see any reason why Russia and the United States cannot cooperate for the sake of the universe.
Lavrov said that Russia also wants to resolve the disputes through peace talks.
Just in his latest statement, the president clearly indicated that we are ready for any eventuality, but we strongly prefer peaceful solution through negotiations on the basis of respecting legitimate security interests of Russia and on the basis of respecting the people who live in Ukraine, who still live in Ukraine being Russians, and their basic human rights.
Next, Lavrov accused Ukraine of passing a series of laws that deprived Russians in Ukraine of their language and other rights before the war began.
Language rights, religious rights have been exterminated by series of legislation passed by the Ukrainian parliament, and they started long before the special military operation. Since 2017, legislation was passed prohibiting Russian education in Russian, prohibiting Russian media operating in Ukraine, then prohibiting Ukrainian media working in Russian language, and the latest, of course, there were also steps to cancel any cultural events in Russian. Russian books were thrown out of libraries and exterminated. And the latest was the law prohibiting canonic Orthodox Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church.
Of course, this is the argument on the Russian side, but the mainstream media has been repeating the Ukrainian argument for the past 3 years, and we should listen to the Russian message as well. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that many of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.